And now for our feature presentation.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series. Watson, touchdown. Hunter Renfrow. He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
The Citadel baseball team has done it again. This time, the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers. Get the ball to Bennett. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right, greetings and a good Monday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and very proudly presented by Motley Rice. Causes not just cases, MotleyRice.com, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, StokesVW.com, and today brought to you in part by Palmetto Group Insurance, PalmettoGroupInsurance.com, and by Jamie Richardson, serving up your family, business, whatever it may be, your insurance needs, PalmettoGroupInsurance.com. It is another beautiful day outside. Make sure you follow us on social media at JB and Goldwater, individually at Sports Media JB and at Darren Goldwater. Make sure you've downloaded the app as well. And the Share Healthcare chat lines, they are open. You can be a part of our conversation over the next couple of hours. Wes Mitchell will be. Welcome back, Wes. It's been a while. We've just had so much stuff going on and so many different media conflicts on Mondays, but we've got him back today, and we've got the NFL Draft this week, so we'll get his thoughts on some of the Gamecocks that are hoping and expected to hear their names called later on in the week. We'll talk to him about some of the recruiting stuff going on with Carolina, because there are some silent commits out there, and then there's a quarterback who's got him in the top 5 and things like that, and look at a couple of other topics as far as the actual football team goes, those who are already in uniform, and what the next couple of weeks will look like for them. Tough week for Carolina baseball. Scott Wingo will be here at 1:05 today. He always brings as much positive energy as possible, though, so excited to speak with Scotty about what happened on the Plains. They didn't win one game, a sweep for Auburn, and we'll get into that in our Palmetto State baseball roundup here in just a little bit. And I mentioned the NFL Draft, maybe a new number one kind of emerging, if you've kept up with reports. So, and potentially, Darren, not a quarterback taken in the top 20 picks of the draft. If there is one taken in the first round, maybe two, but maybe one. It's strange. You just don't hear that often, and some MLB stuff certainly to get to. So it should be a fun Monday. We hope you'll stick around. And with that, good afternoon, my friend.
It's just not a loaded NFL draft. I mean, you've heard rumblings and rumors of virtually every team in the top 10, at least debating, trying to get out if they can. It's not a good quarterback draft. We know that too. So I've never been a big draft guy. I say that every year. I mean, I'll check and see who went where. But I am excited to see the production, because it's right in front of the fountain in the Bellagio out in Vegas on the Strip. So some of the first images are coming out of the stage, kind of how it looks at night, all lit up, kind of at dusk, because it'll be 3 hours back. It's going to be awesome. It's going to look awesome. So I'm looking forward to the production. And as we get rolling, shout out to John Reynolds, our former free agent basketball coach, analyst, and former Gamecock assistant, is now officially hired at the Citadel.
Yeah, I saw that this morning and was going to lead off with that today. I'm glad you mentioned it. First of all, he's a great guy, and he is a great coach. I know that Frank Martin, with him on staff for 5 years, spoke incredibly highly of him. I just saw a minute ago that Frank has, I guess, has already kind of retweeted some stuff and things like that about him. So I know that Coach is really happy for JR. And Darren, you were there when he was there before. And so you know all about that. I'll kind of leave the specifics up to you, but I think it's neat. I think it's a great fit. And Coach Conroy is putting a little steam in that momentum sale right now. They're the Dogs, even though they've lost Hayden Brown. More on that in just a minute. It's a group of people seemingly that are going to be leading the program moving forward. And this is, by the way, in no way, shape, or form disrespectful to Coach Balcom. And I don't mean that at all. I'm just talking about where they are now. It's a bunch of people that understand the Citadel, and at a place as hard as it is to coach and play in and win in, like the Citadel, it's important to have people that understand it, and collectively they're gathering a nice group that do so.
And then they know each other well. I mean, when JR was playing, it was under Conroy. It was during that you can call glory period for the Citadel. And I know when this job opened, I didn't like the circumstances around it, and I still don't. I mean, I don't love how it ended for Balcom. I don't think it was generally fair. Having said that, I am very much excited for Ed Conroy and very excited for JR. And I think it's great for him that the night or day, whichever one it happened, I was talking with JR and I knew he was interested. I knew this was something that piqued his interest as a former player to go back to the Citadel and coach in a actual assistant capacity, a paid assistant capacity. He's earned his stripes. He really has. And he's ready for the opportunity. And like you said, it takes, I always believe, having spent time there, it takes people who understand the Citadel, not necessarily went there, but understand it to succeed.
Right.
You've got a coach who played there and had the best couple of seasons ever, and another guy who played there. So I like what they're doing. And the first commitment they announced, they think is going to be a potential difference maker in the SoCon too. So we'll see. Good luck to them.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great way to lead off Monday because again, as you mentioned, he's just a wonderful person, great fit in the whole 9 yards at the Citadel, and so really excited about that. I was just so thrilled to see that news a little while ago, and we will see what happens. Hopefully, the Dogs are maybe primed in the future to crack that one of 4 teams to never make the dance. That maybe the second time will be the charm under Coach Conroy's watch as well. And they haven't been as good since the last time he was there. So that would be just wonderful, wonderful. Congratulations, JR. That's fantastic. Now, Hayden Brown, they would be real happy if he was still in uniform there, but he has announced a transfer, and he's actually going where JR left. He's headed to South Carolina. We got that news a couple of days ago. And I look, it is really weird to say this. And again, this is no disrespect to the Citadel or Hayden Brown, but it is so strange to think that a transfer from the Citadel is going to South Carolina. And from what I understand, internally, they're like thrilled about this. I mean, obviously, they wouldn't have taken him if they weren't. But it's like, wow, what world are we living in? I mean, there was Darren, you were the voice of the Dogs. Like back in that time, and Carolina wasn't any, they weren't any big deal in basketball then, like they aren't really now. But you still never looked at anybody in a Citadel uniform. At least I didn't. And again, this is no disrespect to anybody. I'm just saying, oh man, I tell you what, if they could transfer and play at South Carolina tomorrow. But here we are. And I mean, it's neat. It's great. I mean, I'm so happy. It's just a strange conversation to have with the different levels that you would expect both of them to be in.
You're going to see this, especially with the mid-majors. Now, the Citadel job, VMI, and there's another thing we won't even get into with VMI kid transferring over to Chattanooga. With the portal, though, it will be even harder to sustain success. Any type of built success at a place with built-in disadvantages, it'll be hard to sustain that now because of the portal, because it will be so easy for anyone to show up, say, look, I'm a stud, and then to be recruited heavily once the offseason comes. This is the second one in 2 years. Caden Rice went to Georgetown, and Rice just declared for the NBA draft. So now the Citadel has 2 guys leaving, 2 all SoCon guys leaving, and going to major programs. Georgetown and now South Carolina. Brown's a big guy. I'm interested to see how he fits in that type of a system, which is polar opposite to what he was doing at the Citadel. But he's a versatile guy. He can shoot the 3, 28, 29% clip. And he was asked to do that kind of a lot, even playing the 4 and the 5. It was about 25% of his shots this last year. But he's big. He's got a frame. He could be physical. And Paris likes him because Paris has been dominated by this kid like 3 different times, twice last year and once this year. So it's obvious why Paris sees the potential and the upside in Hayden Brown.
And he might not be the only former Holy City star in uniform at South Carolina either. Announced this morning, former College of Charleston stud and transferred to Boston College and now transferring out of Boston College, Brevin Galloway has narrowed his next – he's got 1 year left. His next landing spot to either Clemson or Carolina. Nonetheless, he's coming back to the Palmetto State to play his final year of college basketball and is down to the Gamecocks and the Tigers. He is originally from Anderson, and so you'd like to think that maybe that's a slight edge to Clemson being right there, basically next door. But I don't know that I would think about it that way. I guess I sent one text on this, and the text I got back said, no, that has nothing to do with it. So Brevin Galloway could be in Columbia as well, could be in Clemson as well. They've had some quote-unquote internal renovations with their program, new coaches coming, old coaches leaving. They've had transfers. South Carolina, Clemson, College of Charleston, the Citadel, they're like thousands of other programs, it seems like, in the country. The season's over, and then it's a crapshoot. Try to figure out what they're going to look like next season. Carolina is a complete rebuild. Keyshawn Bryant has announced that he's withdrawn from the NBA draft, but he's just going to transfer, so he's not going to come back to Carolina. This is pretty wild. And heck, in addition to that, the news that we kind of trickled out over the weekend. I hinted at this on Friday, but Julian Phillips, the 5-star originally from Blythewood, had committed to LSU. He went to school up in Missouri, committed to LSU, got out of his NIL or NLI, National Letter of Intent, after the release of Will Wade. He was on campus in Columbia this weekend, and that would be a game changer. Now, there are some strings attached to the backside of that story if Carolina can pull it off. And I said NIL originally, that there's something to that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it'll work out or if it won't, but we'll find out. But things starting to trickle out a little bit for the Carolina basketball program as well as to maybe what their roster might look like, Darren, and they're all familiar names to this point.
You're seeing whatever's happening here with the situation you just discussed. A lot of it is relatively public, we'll just say. And what you're seeing now more and more are articles being published with random Coach A and random Coach B saying this is free agency now because I couldn't land this transfer, I being random Coach A, because that school gave him $400,000 more, and stories like that. That's where we are right now in college sports. And I don't see that changing necessarily anytime soon, but that is absolutely where we are. It is now fully out in the open, a combination of, do you like the coach in school? And if this is part of your mindset, what else do you want to go there? That's happening. Coaches are talking about it. And the buzz around that is growing as more coaches feel at least comfortable to attach their name as anonymous to stories.
Yeah. Jack Swarbrick, the AD at Notre Dame, not specifically on basketball, but just spoke about at some point in time, there's going to be the great divide in college athletics. And we'll dabble in that a little bit later on, but he was pretty just, let me just be blunt with you about where I think this thing is going, period, the end. And just kind of called it like he saw it. I think it was Sports Illustrated, I believe, maybe that ran that. And so it's those, what you just said and what he said, and what we hear it all the time, but they're all connecting dots into one big junked up looking frame of college athletics that really isn't a frame. It's a broken frame. The framework itself is broken at this point until there is something better in place. And Swarbrick thinks that that's going to be probably a little while, maybe like the mid-30s. So you're probably looking at about a decade before some of the wheels really start spinning on the divide. But the issue is going to be, can you get any of this a little bit under control before then? And I agree with what you just said. I don't see it changing anytime soon. There's no leadership still. I mean, how are you going to do something if you don't have anybody who can make the decision? So, and if anything, Darren, everybody's loosening the belt even more because they know that if you don't have a prayer. Like, you can't stick to any of your old guns. It doesn't work that way right now.
And you can be public about it. So you can loosen your belt and be throwing a little bit more around and utilize more of your resources, because if something gets out, okay, What am I doing wrong? I'm not doing anything wrong.
Nothing.
So schools are more comfortable doing that. The purveyors of business, if you will, are more comfortable doing that as well because, well, it's all out in the open now. So what he said on the heels of what Dabo said, last week or 2 weeks ago, Saban has said similar things. I'll say the same thing I've been saying. I agree completely. It is inevitable that the big boys separate because the money is going to be so much different, and not just NIL type money. Where the Big Ten and SEC are projected to go, and this is referenced in the article as well. We've talked about it many times. Financially speaking, where the Big Ten and SEC are slated to go together, no one else is in the ballpark. Nobody else. And that is in the time frame of what Swarbrick's talking about, the late 20s into the 30s. That's when it's really going to start to separate. It is inevitable because it just won't be fair to keep everyone on the same playing field.
Yeah, it's it is changing quick. There's no question about that. Think about what has happened in just 1 year. Wow, amazing. 12:15 on a Monday afternoon as we kick off your work week here on the JB and Goldwater Show. Again, Wes Mitchell, Scott Wingo are coming up on our program quickly here around the state in baseball this weekend. Already mentioned Carolina swept at Auburn, now 19-20, 6-12 in the SEC. The Tigers, they're getting it going. They're 7-2 in their last 9. They're now 26-14 overall and 6-11 in the ACC. Still work to do, but they took 2 of 3 this weekend from Florida State. They've taken their last 2 SEC or ACC series, and those are good series wins against Wake and FSU. And they've got to go to Louisville coming up this weekend. So a statement opportunity for Monty Lee and Clemson baseball. Western Carolina took 2 of 3 from the Citadel. The Dogs now 21-18 and 2-7 in the Southern Conference. Gardner-Webb was at CSU this weekend. CSU took 2 of 3 there. They're 16-24 and 8-10 in the league. The College of Charleston swept Elon, and they stay hot. They're 26-13. They're 13-2 in the CAA, and they are firmly in control of what is going on in the league to win the regular season championship. There are ways in an at-large if you don't win the tournament championship, but Coach Holbrook knows just win the tournament championship if you can do it. That will be the safest way to get in to the postseason for the Cougars. And then UT Arlington was at Coastal this weekend. Coastal, they swept them. So they're now 22-14 and 1 and 11-6 and 1 in the Fun Belt. Jamie, guys, anyway, Kingston survives to next season at this rate. My guesstimate on that would be no. And I I hate saying that because I don't ever want to hear anybody getting fired. You just don't want to hear it. But let me give you the numbers, Darren. You ready for the numbers?
Yeah, they're great.
Now, these are all games. I could do the SEC, and it's not going to change. But these are all games that all teams in the SEC have played this year. Batting average, they're last by 13 points. Slugging percentage, they're last. On-base percentage, last. Runs scored, last. Hits, last by 30. RBI, last. Doubles, last. Triples, 13th. Home runs, last. Total bases, last. Total plate appearances, last. ABs, second to last. If you don't have that many ABs, that means you're not getting a lot of hits. Means it's not turning over to you. Walks, 11th. Strikeouts, only 306 of those, which is great. But you could, let me tell you, Tennessee struck out 324 times this year, but they're one of the best hitting teams in the country. You can handle strikeouts if you do all the other stuff. All right. But Carolina ain't doing that. Sack flies, second to last. They've got 15 sack bunts. There you go.
It's hard to have sack flies when you're not having hits and you're not having guys on base.
Yeah. Let me turn the page. Let's get to pitching. ERA, second to last. Opposing batting average, last. Innings pitched, third to last. Batter struck out, 11th. Wins, last. Losses, first. That's never good. Darren, I'm not going to keep going. It ain't good. No. And I I know Coach Kingston, and so I there's you know this about me, Darren. There's nothing in my body that ever wants to sit up here in a 2-hour program and beat the drum for someone to lose their job or something like that. Everything seemingly is personal to me when I know somebody, and I don't ever want to see anything bad to happen to people. And I hope it doesn't. I hope they win every game the rest of the year. That's what I really hope. But they're not going to. So if you ended the season today, I don't know that you can move forward like that. I just don't think you can. And let's bring it all into, let's all kind of summarize. When South Carolina hired Will Muschamp to coach the football team, Darren, do you remember the pool of coaches that they basically had to choose from, right?
Yeah.
Got led on by the biggest name in Tom Herman, and he was just using them as leverage. They had Kirby Smart in the bag until Georgia said, whoa, wait a second here. Mark, we love you, but we got to move on because we can't let this guy go. You're probably getting to that specific situation soon if there is that decision that needs to be made. You're not going to have that situation, the talent pool situation that Coach Tanner had to choose from in that football search. You're not going to have that this go around. Like, there is an elite talent pool of head coaches that this job is intriguing to them for multiple reasons. Now, with that said, there is a likelihood that there will be another opening in the SEC. And then you have to take into consideration that there's always going to be one or two changes that at this point in time aren't on the radar.
The trickle down.
Right. So you're going to probably have a scenario where there, in my opinion, and there's no opening in South Carolina right now. So I'm not going to give you a public list of names that I've heard of or that I think or anything like that. But you could probably speculate on some of them out there, and you'd probably be right. If there is an opening at South Carolina, there are 4 or 5 guys that are no doubters. And then there's 1 or 2 that are above those other no doubters. And Carolina would have a great chance with them, all of them. But you're going to also have to remember that if there are openings around you, you're going to have to play this game a little bit. So it's almost like, do you make a change and target your guy instead of going through the process, which is probably what you'll need to do? Or do you go through the process and allow all these other guys to kind of be in the game at the same time? I mean, there's going to be a little bit of a method to it if that's the route that if that's where South Carolina ends up going, Darren. But with that being said, you could even miss on 1 or 2 and you're still going to be in good shape. I mean, there is a great group of coaches out there, and I know that you know who some of them are. And again, we're hinting at this. We're hinting at it because there's nothing official. So until there's something official, it's negligent to sit up here and say, well, this is the guy that they should go get. There's no job openings yet. But where they stand right now, 19 and 26 and 12 in the league, yeah, you can't. That's unacceptable. So it's starting to tilt that way as the season begins to kind of wind towards the end.
The numbers you read off are, to me, worse than the record. I mean,
Right.
It was, as Jamie pointed out. Not Jamie Bradford host, Jamie in our Share Healthcare chat line. It was painful to listen to. So 2 things about what could potentially be next. Number 1, if the talent pool is as, let's say, hardy as we think it is, then some of these guys are in positions of not really wanting their name out there right now.
Right.
So making a move early and having things get out that so-and-so head coach somewhere is involved with an opening, that's bad. It's a bad look for every single person involved. It's bad for South Carolina. It's bad for that coach. It's bad for that other school. So you don't want that to happen. So internally, behind the scenes, at this point, this is when discussions are happening, right? It's not news that Sean Miller had some behind the scenes conversations with South Carolina. So when they made the move, it was not just fresh then. It had already been at least discussed to some degree. So this is the point where you're making sure you have a list of candidates, right? Because you don't know which way you're going to go on your side, Mark Kingston's side. So keep those things quiet And then if it eventually does get out, like someone pointed out in the Share Healthcare chat line here, as the search goes along, it's a much better pool. So if you do fall to second or third on your list, that's still a palatable thing. It's not going to be here's the hottest mid-major guy. It's going to be, here's the guy, maybe he wasn't the first one we targeted, but let me show you his resume.
Yeah.
And it should be palatable to everybody.
Yeah, and look, Carolina, there's nothing that can be offered at other potential openings that they can't offer.
Mhm.
I mean, they have it all. I mean, they have the history, the tradition, the ballpark, the talent pool, the support. They have everything. There's nothing here that somebody is going to strictly choose another school because South Carolina doesn't have blank. That won't be the case. What will be the case, so as Mike Morgan has said 1,000 times over, is that some guys are just more comfortable in other roles, and some guys just don't want your school.
Yes.
For instance, like I've seen, and again, I'm not even saying this guy is or isn't on the list or anything like that, but Link Jarrett at Notre Dame, everybody knows who he is now. He's on everybody's list.
Mhm.
If there is a move made. No offense to Notre Dame, but they're not some traditional baseball power. They're good program, but I mean, if you think about baseball powers in the ACC, they're not even in my top 6 or 7. And they certainly don't hold a candle to most in the SEC. But he's got him as one of the best programs in the country. And let's hypothetically speaking, let's say he needed to make a decision based on one school or another, he might be more comfortable going to another school over South Carolina. And that's just his decision. It's not because Gamecocks did anything wrong.
Yeah. Like all the other coaching searches we've talked about, right? I mean, what's in the coach's mind? Are you comfortable? Is this the family life you want? All right. You're staying. Do you want something different, a different challenge? You consider options.
Absolutely. So, I mean, there's always different angles to discuss this from. And, I love all of our friends in the Share Healthcare chat lines, and Will's with us every week, and we hear you, Will, and I love you, and I really appreciate you chiming in. But let me just kind of help the conversation out here. Ray Tanner will be the one to make this hire. Nobody up there is going to say you can't do it. He's the AD. He's the one that's going to make the hire. How does that make anybody feel? I can't tell you how to feel about that. I could tell you that this would be a significantly different process than it was before, and it would be significantly different than it was the first time. And, Coach Tanner, if Coach Kingston, if his time is up at some point in time in the future, we can, and I'll leave this to all of you now. I'm just not personally going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Then we can talk about whether that was a mistake or how bad it was and all those type of things. The Holbrook tenure's over. And so we can talk about that. And it was not a mistake at all. I mean, everybody in the country wanted to hire Chad Holbrook. Coach Tanner probably would have been fired in his first day on the job had he not hired that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he didn't, he was going to Tennessee or he was going wherever the hell he wanted to go. And I mean, there were literally teams who were like, if they don't hire Chad Holbrook, we're firing our coach to hire Chad Holbrook.
Mm-hmm.
He was the hottest name in college baseball in 2012 when Coach Tanner took the AD job. So there was a no-brainer there. But with Coach Kingston, obviously things have just not worked to this point at the level in which the expectations say they should work. And so we'll have to gauge that when we get there.
Yep.
We'll see. Exactly, Jamie.
And then you judge this hire because if there's a vacancy and if there's another hiring process, the expectations you laid out are real. If those expectations are not met, then that conversation can be revisited as well.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. And, I'm not going to speculate on other ones, but we know, look, Ole Miss is struggling and they ain't happy in Oxford right now with their rival won the national championship last year. They were number 1 in the country 4 weeks ago, and they're 6-12 in the league, just like the Gamecocks are. People are going, whoa, that's not cool here. And there's other rumblings, and the ACC has some rumblings too at some really good jobs. So, it's one of those things where, let's hypothetically speaking, Darren, if Ole Miss was open and Florida State was open or Clemson was open or something like that, Gamecocks have achieved more than all of those schools by virtue of winning 2 national championships. But that doesn't mean that those are bad jobs.
No.
And great coaches out there will look at it and say, well, I could be the first one to win one at Ole Miss. And so we don't know. We don't know how it's going to unfold. Still a lot to talk about and get there. but just need to make sure everybody kind of understands it'd be a different process, and the expectations at South Carolina are not limited to South Carolina.
You're expected to be as good as you've laid it out. You're expected to be in the postseason, compete for a regional, super regional at least. Those are fair expectations. Yeah. So the coaching search, if there is one, the expectation will be real and justified that it should be a very high profile name search, not a one big target and let's see where it all falls after that. It should be a high profile name search. Yeah. And then let's see how that goes. So it's hard to even have the conversation because there's not even an opening. So
we don't have an opening.
No. Yeah. So it's hard to even go down that road. But yeah, Tanner's obviously the one who's going to be making this decision. And then let's see if there's even a decision to make, and then let's see what the process looks like.
Yeah, Adam, the question would the BOT step in the way of this since they're going to be blown up? No, they won't. That won't happen. The new president of South Carolina will make sure that does not happen. And it doesn't need to happen. The Board of Trustees needs to get as far away from being involved in any potential search as they can. I bet if y'all knew the half of it sometimes, and it will slowly trickle out over the next year or so, I think people would be blown away with some of the just ridiculousness that goes on behind the scenes that somehow gets over to Coach Tanner's desk. I'm not sure how he doesn't just tell everybody to go, what themselves here and there, but that's for another day. And I'll say personally, it's uncomfortable to have the conversation until it's time to have it. We got Scott Wingo coming up. This guy just took a job at South Carolina. The last thing I want to see is Scott Wingo come home and then all of a sudden there's an opening. He doesn't know what he's doing with his life.
Yep.
There's a lot to be concerned with here from a human perspective. So we'll see. Tough weekend, though, no doubt, for the Gamecocks. All right, let's hit a timeout, Darren. When we return, we're going to shift gears into football. A lot of good news on that side of things. Wes Mitchell will tell you about it when we return.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road. You know what happens when you sell record numbers of new vehicles? That's right, we take in record numbers of local trades. Despite what the news is saying, quality pre-owned vehicles really aren't that hard to find. You just need to know where to look. Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate and on the web at stokesvw.com. We've got over 1,200 pre-owned cars, trucks, SUVs, and all at a fraction of the price when new. Every vehicle has been inspected and reconditioned, many with the balance of factory warranty. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, you don't need perfect credit to get approved for a quality pre-owned vehicle. And we'll take any trade in any condition, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Don't forget, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy a car from us. You're going to love our pre-owned selection, I guarantee it. So come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Negative trade equity financed a new loan, subject to lender approval.
People don't like to get stuck in traffic, stuck in the mud, stuck at work. And two others you probably don't think much about, stuck with a big medical bill or stuck with a healthcare program that doesn't fit who you are. Experience true medical freedom with Share Healthcare. More affordable, more options, user-friendly, and biblically sound. You can join right now. Explore a new way to show you care with Share Healthcare. Join us today at sharehealthcare.com. sharehealthcare.com.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
It's the best time of the year on the sports calendar, and there's no better place to soak it all in than your spring headquarters. Dog and Duck, with 3 area locations in Bell Hall, Park West, and Clemens Ferry Road. Until May, $5 pints of Wicked Weed Brews and Devil's Backbone, again, until May. Patio seating, happy hour daily, family bingo on Monday, the Duck Truck Double Burger every Wednesday, rib night on Friday. It's the place to be for the best wings in town, the best sports everywhere you look. Dog and Duck, 3 area locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clemens Ferry Road.
Motley Rice LLC is a law firm with international reach, but it hasn't lost its Carolina roots. The Motley Rice team fights every day for people harmed by products including asbestos and talc exposure. medical drugs and devices, and also catastrophic injuries and auto recalls, including dangerous Takata airbags. Motley Rice is headquartered in Mount Pleasant at 28 Bridgeside Boulevard. Visit motleyrice.com. Thank you, Motley Rice, for supporting the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show.
Okay, what's going on today, huh? Anything to talk about?
All right, greetings and a good Monday afternoon. Greetings and a good Tuesday afternoon. Greetings and a good Wednesday afternoon, and welcome aboard. All right, greetings and a good Thursday afternoon. Greetings and a good Friday afternoon, and welcome aboard. All right, 12:35. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater Show. Today brought to you in part by Palmetto Group Insurance, palmettogroupinsurance.com. It has been entirely too long since we've been able to see Wes Mitchell. We didn't replace you. I remember when you texted me and asked if you had been replaced. We've never replaced you. We just
who did y'all replace me with?
Yuva. I mean, you hired Yuva, so we figured, well, fine. We'll just keep the Gamecock Central thing going.
Well, so I guess I can just make Yuva do all my work. I might be okay with that, actually.
Oh, so he would actually work. Well, that's good. Good to hear. No, I mean, we had a couple Mondays where we had, Beamer conflicts or football, but now that's over. And then had some baseball things. I can't remember, man, but we didn't forget about
championship too. I think was
that's right. That was one of them. Yeah. I forget. Everybody was throwing down with Darius and Nelly last night. Did you go to that?
I did not. It looked like a great time, though. I gotta say,
it did,
dude. I mean, where was Darius doing that when the baseball team won the national championships? Like, I would have been there. Nothing.
Well, you saw they said that it's got to go in Willie B next time. So, I'm guessing if they did Williams Bryce, you'd have to let everybody in, right? Like you're not going to fill up Willie B with just students. So, no. I'm already excited for that, honestly.
I mean,
who's going to win the national championship next?
Well, I'll say that if in so which anybody that watches or listens to this program that's not a Carolina fan is about to laugh, and I understand that. You go ahead. But if the football team ever won one, there wouldn't be an empty seat in Williams-Brice Stadium if Darius Rucker played a concert. Matter of fact, there'd be, I don't even know how you'd explain that.
That would be one of the biggest parties this state has ever seen.
Probably the biggest. I was Wes, did you go to the Kenny Chesney show at Williams-Brice back in 2008? Were you there for that?
I was not. I heard it was awesome.
Yeah, it was. It was packed. I mean, it was the same thing. I mean, the whole place was slammed. It was like a football game. It's crazy.
Well, Beyonce and Jay-Z were the same thing. I can't remember what year that was. That was right before the season opener for Carolina a few years back. I don't know. It all runs together at some point.
I remember that, and people were really concerned about the turf. We were like, what are we doing here? We got a concert, like, I think it was the weekend, but Muschamp said something about it. You remember that?
Yeah. Well, it was a big deal because people make a big deal about things around here. But the turf, apparently that is a very common thing, but just we had never seen it before. So everybody, but I remember they actually had one or two of South Carolina's turf experts actually available to the media to answer questions about the turf.
That's right. And they were basically like, nah, dude, we roll it out, we roll it in. It takes 24 hours and it's good to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a whole new world. All right. So we're going to get to some of the NFL draft stuff in just a little bit, Wes. Hopefully Carolina maybe can get maybe 3 names called this week or so. We know they'll get one. How many more do they get beyond that? But let's start with some of the recruiting things that are going on out there. I mean, I think it was expected that Dylan Lonergan was going to include Carolina in his top 5, but when you look at the who's who that they're up against, what are their chances of landing this young man, and what does that timeline look like?
Yeah, I think, like you said, Dylan has been he's been kind of systematic about it, so it wasn't a surprise that South Carolina was going to make the top 5. Like that was, you rarely use the word lock, but I think South Carolina was a lock to make the top 5. Quarterback recruiting a lot of times you have this domino effect. So it kind of depends on, what other school lands, what other quarterback. And then once that slot is taken, then a lot of times that sort of eliminates that school for the other quarterbacks in the class. So quarterback recruiting, it can get dangerous to try and actually predict at times because one domino can change all the other dominoes. But, I think as far as these top 5 go, I'm looking at South Carolina, Stanford, and then Florida, actually. I think that Alabama will probably end up with Eli Holstein, who's another highly rated quarterback. I'm not sure what Ohio State's plans are, but I know they're in on some other guys. And then, I think you look at those other 3 schools, 5 visits to South Carolina for Lonergan and his family. A couple of trips to Stanford. Obviously, anytime you got it, he's a smart kid. Stanford's that's going to carry some weight on the academic side of things. And then Florida, I would sort of call the dark horse of this thing because they got in late, but they have the obvious excuse of getting in late. Hey, new coaching staff trying to build something different. You always get a little extra juice in recruiting when it's a brand new coach. So those are kind of the 3 that I'm looking at. I'm not quite at the point of saying you should predict South Carolina. Like I'm not quite at that point yet. I think that is a little bit premature based on my information, but I do think Carolina's in a decent spot here. And I think there's still another step to the process because Dylan is going to take official visits is the plan right now. So you're talking about this hasn't been confirmed, but my guess based on how these things usually play out, my guess is that Dylan will take officials in June and then make a decision shortly after that, because that's the trend right now. If you haven't made a decision yet and you don't want to wait all the way till early signing day, which I certainly don't think he'll wait until then, will be that he will want to be done with the process this summer.
Okay. Well, that would be good news for South Carolina because this is their guy, right? Like if you kind of always have a target guy in every class, seemingly, at least that's the way it's worked in recent memory. But if they don't get him, what's after that? What other names are out there?
Yeah, right now, they sort of taken an approach of, hey, you're our guy for 2023. There certainly will be a plan. I feel pretty safe saying there probably already is a plan that they would quickly pivot to potentially if they had to. But I think right now that's been sort of part of the pitch is hey, you've been our guy for this class, and we're sort of hanging to that recruiting pitch right now. And I think it's a little bit they're in a good place to be able to do that because you took 2 high school quarterbacks last class.
Yeah.
And, I think I look ahead to 2024. They're already in really good shape with Jaden Bradford and Dante Reno.
Wow.
So they're in good shape with those 2 guys. And you brought in 2 freshmen this past class. Obviously they brought in Spencer Rattler, who most people, believe will be here for a year, but, it puts you in a situation if you had to go portal again. Let's say Lonergan goes elsewhere, Rattler, is here for a year, and you just felt like you needed to. You could always go portal again. But I think feeling good about 2024, and then they really liked what Braden Davis did as far as the future at that position. They're very high on Tanner Bailey coming in this summer, so it's kind of put them in a place where they've been able to be a little bit selective for 2023. So it's not just all freak out, if you don't end up getting him. So I think they're in pretty good shape with QB recruiting, as opposed to sometimes you're sitting there saying, hey, we got to get a guy, right? You have to, like last class, they're saying we got to get a guy. And they ended up actually getting 2 and 3 of them, if you count Spencer.
How does Lonergan compare to the other 2 recruits that are now coming on in Davis and
Tanner Bailey
and Bailey? When they were at his point, how does he compare to them?
Yeah, I think they're different quarterbacks. Braden is tall, athletic, high upside. Will need some time in the weight room. I think anybody that saw him in the spring game would probably agree. Is going to need a year or two in a college lifting program to add some strength, add some weight. Now, his father is a NFL level offensive tackle, so you would think that he's going to have the ability to do that. So the bloodlines are good there. Tanner Bailey is more. He's a good bit smaller actually than Braden. More of a pass first guy. Further along as a passer, so there's probably not quite as much upside to go. Very advanced passer at his age. Lonergan probably splits the difference between the two. He's a little bit more prototypically sized than you would say Tanner is. He's more 6'2", big frame kid, already developed as a passer as well. Excellent baseball player. That's another variable to this thing is he could be a high round draft pick for the MLB draft. So that's a completely, that could throw you a curveball as well. And in some ways has maybe hurt Dylan with some of these other schools, I would think, because you don't want to take him as your guy. And then he goes and plays Major League Baseball and you never see him on campus. Now, South Carolina is recruiting him for baseball as well, as are all the other schools in the 5. He actually visited for that Ole Miss game that was the same day as the spring game, visited for that baseball game and checked that out. So, that's a factor. That's a factor on both ends of this. It's a factor in that Dylan is considering the baseball teams and programs too, but it's also a factor in that he very well could be a high draft pick and end up not going to college at all.
Wes Mitchell, Gamecock Central. One of the things that I have heard a lot, and this includes Spencer Rattler, and he mentioned it in his mic'd up segment that South Carolina released a couple of days ago from the spring game. We've heard this from virtually every recruit to this point. There has been a common theme when you ask them why South Carolina, what has you interested, what are they telling you? They all bring up Marcus Satterfield, and they all bring up the offense, and that it's an NFL, style, pro style offense. They seemingly all like this. I mean, so, I'm not trying to turn this into another one of the thousands of conversations everybody had about Marcus Satterfield last year. But I mean, Wes, we watched an offense for the large majority of the 2021 season that was rightfully and heavily scrutinized. It just wasn't good. But Shane Beamer at the end of the year after that North Carolina game, if you remember, somebody asked him, something about Satterfield. He said, well, that's why he's still here. Look at the scoreboard. Look at the stat book. So, I mean, what is it? Like, how would you explain that? Because for 13 games, my own eyes, I wasn't very impressed, and I don't think a lot of people were, but is it just because they just didn't have it in the quarterback room? Does that have more to do with it than maybe somebody uneducated like myself thought?
Yeah, I thought for a second you were going to say all these recruits were mentioning how much they love getting interviewed on Gamecock Central as the reason
that too.
That they go to South Carolina. But maybe that was the second
led with that.
reason.
Yeah.
But no, I think it has been kind of interesting. That was a big reason, that Spencer Rattler has mentioned. And I do think depending on what certain guys are looking for, one of South Carolina's selling points has been, look, you can go to one of these other offenses and you can, in some cases probably put up some big numbers, but it's not going to be necessarily what you're going to be asked to do at the next level. And that's been South Carolina's selling point is, hey, come in, start to get a feel for all the depth of requirements to play quarterback in the NFL, and you can do it at the college level. And they've really, I think, doubled down on that as far as showing the guys how similar it is to what these NFL teams are running. Now, I do think there is a little bit more leniency from recruits about what they saw on the field last year than there is obviously from the fan base who watches every single game, every single play with complete scrutiny, right? Like we're watching every good moment, every bad moment, every ugly moment. Recruits aren't watching it like that. They're seeing, well, yeah, the offense struggled if you look at the numbers last year, but it was year one. And there were 4 different quarterbacks that started games. And I think recruits are a little bit more forgiving to stuff like that, especially to give some credit to Satterfield. If you meet the guy and talk ball with him, you're like, this guy is incredibly impressive. Like it's not that he's certainly not a dumb dude. Like you talk ball with him and you're like, this guy knows his stuff. Like he is very impressive to talk ball with. So, we always have to remember fans are not recruits and recruits are not fans. Like they're looking at it very, very differently than your average fan is looking at this offense. I
think nationally there was one segment that was overly hypercritical, and it's the diehard fan. Outside of that, myself now included, the perception was, yeah, it wasn't good, but let me list the reasons why it's probable that it wasn't good, and it's year one. I think that's the more overriding opinion. It makes sense that recruits fall into that side of it, right?
Yeah, and I think you look and I think even internally, you kind of have to remember, look, these guys are going through their, third OC in 3 years, maybe fourth in 5 years. It's that's never, if you've got, and let's remember, a lot of these guys have been here for a while. So you got offensive linemen that have heard 8 different schemes at South Carolina. It's like it's not ideal at all. So I think the last thing Shane Beamer wanted to do was just, well, hey, we're pulling the plug on this offense and starting over again.
Right.
Right. So I understand the fan frustrations with how the offense looked. And, we talked about the offense every single Monday on this show last year, and yours. I think it's one of those things where I understand the frustration, but also you've got to give a little bit of, a little bit of leeway. Let's see what happens this year. And I think that's what I think the recruits are saying. Well, maybe I can help fix that. Maybe I can be the one to come in and make some plays.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you're at a point, Wes, where you're going to, regardless of how much it's sold or discussed in such a positive light here in the off season, if you get more of the same in this coming year, it's going to come crashing down on you, right? Because this is year 2 in the offense. You've done nothing but really upgrade your talent, starting with quarterback. You got one of the best quarterbacks apparently in the country, right? You get your entire offensive line back. They've upgraded their tight end position, no offense to Nick Muse. The wide receivers are better. You haven't lost anything at running back as far as I'm concerned. I don't think anybody else is. I mean, there's no excuse, right? I mean, you have to be better. Now, are we saying that you have to be what Alabama and LSU have been the last couple of years? Well, no. But I mean, you got to be better. Like, you can't be that again. And if you aren't better, then I think that would be a large enough sample size to say, okay, this ain't gonna work, right? Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean,
25 games.
I think for the most part, Marcus Satterfield would probably say that's fair.
I think
right?
so too. I think so. I agree.
I mean, let's and I'm trying to pull the stats up real quick. If you look, I mean, so Alabama last year averaged 39.9 points a game.
That's it.
That ain't happening. Like, sorry, you can't put that expectation on this team. But let's look at Kentucky. Kentucky, if you go back to 2020, averaged 21.8 points a game, which was 11th in the SEC. They bring in a transfer quarterback and retool their offense, and they averaged 32.3 points a game last year. That's good for 5th in the league. So can South Carolina make the jump from 22.6 to, let's say, 29.3 is what Texas A&M, which is Texas A&M is also an offense that isn't big on. We're not gonna go hurry up. We're not gonna sort of skew the numbers by scoring so fast that our defense doesn't ever get a break. Like Texas A&M is more of a pro style offense. They scored 29.3 points a game last year. That's middle of the pack in the SEC. If South Carolina can do that, then I think that is progress. That is like definitive progress. Is what I'm trying to say.
You've improved your win total by at least one, if not maybe two.
You're happy with that, right?
Yeah.
If it's below 25 points a game next year, then you have a problem. We'll just put it like that.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I mean, the honest moment will come. And if it's better, then okay. But if it's not, then, everything that they have been kind of, spitting out for the last, God knows how many months, nobody's going to buy it anymore. Like, just nobody's going to buy it. And the defense is going to hold its own. Wes, if you improve yourself by one touchdown a game, they're going to win games. I mean, period, the end. That defense, I have a hard time believing they're going to run that defense out there and they're going to give up 30 points a game. I just don't see it. So, we'll see. We'll see how it all.
Well, and I'll say this: I do think there were times that I feel like defense. Sometimes when you get a bunch of turnovers, that does sort of revert back to the mean a little bit over a long period of time. So I think the defense will be solid again. I don't know if you can quite count on the defense. You don't want to be counting on the defense quite as much as you did last year, as far as the Kentucky game. That was a low-scoring game, but I think Carolina forced, 5 turnovers, but Kentucky ran the football fairly at will in that game. So, the defense is going to have to improve their run D, but if it's, let's say it's the same exact quality of defense, you offensively need to do a little bit more to help them out than you did last year, because last year you did get some turnovers that were very let's just say ideal for you in terms of when they came. I think
I would say so.
That's cyclical too, just like the turnovers, right? I mean, just like the turnovers, you can't consistently lean on a defense and say, day in, day out, you're going to win us the game. The offense needs to help them. And that's all part of this conversation. The offense has to give the defense some help and score points, but you got to help them.
Yeah, it's all complimentary.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, offenses. I think we're still all such accustomed to the Spurrier era. You mentioned the turnovers. You would see it time and time again for 10 years under Steve. Force a turnover, take a shot, touchdown, changes the whole ball game. And you just haven't seen it. And I think there's a lot of people who just miss that. We look out there and go, well, this is generally where the tight end runs across the field and we score. Where the hell's Busta Anderson, right? It's not always going to be like that. That was a Spurrier type deal, but that's just something we were accustomed to, and hopefully they can get it going. All right, before we let you go, what about the draft this weekend? Projections have JJ, I think, in the second, maybe third, but it's starting to kind of center around that second round for him. And then Zaquandre White and Kevin Harris. I'm really intrigued by this because I think both those guys, Wes, have a shot to be pretty successful in the NFL. Kevin's more of a traditional NFL back, but Zaquandre White is kind of that new age style guy that they can use in multiple roles. I don't know how many people y'all spoken to that are in draft circles or anything like that, but just curious on your thoughts.
Yeah, no, this will be my own personal thoughts. I don't have extra insight on it, but I've had a feeling Z White could be that guy that just, if he can find the right spot, the right landing spot, that just finds a way to stick. For one, he's more than willing to help on special teams and put effort on special teams, which is a way to make the roster in the NFL. And two, just his running style, to me, just looks like some of these modern backs we see having success. So he catches the football well out of the backfield. We've seen that. Willing to do whatever it takes to help the team. And I think those things are great qualities in the NFL. So I think all three of those guys are very hard to predict as far as exactly where they are going to end up, draft round wise. There was some talk early on, maybe JJ slides up into the first round, but I don't think he hit the numbers that he needed to hit, from a testing standpoint. to go up, and I think that's probably eased him back. It wouldn't surprise me if he ends up being more of a third-round guy than a second-round guy, just based on the buzz that's out there. But, we'll see. Obviously, he is certainly a really good football player that can bring a lot to a team. But I think athletically, they are just looking for those numbers mean so much, especially for that position.
Absolutely. I think he was a couple of ticks off in that 40. I think that's the first thing that slid him, Wes. He's, I think, in the mid 4.8s, and if he was in the mid 4.6s, he would probably be a surefire second rounder, if not tapping on the door of the first round. A couple other things in there too, but that was the first stuff I heard about him. When it was that mid 4.8s, people were a little concerned. We'll see.
Yeah. And you could tell he was annoyed. He said several times in the interviews after his pro day, he was just like, I'm ready to get back to football and not be talking about tenths of seconds, basically. But that's the game. That's how it's done. So
yeah, too bad for him. His hand size can't grow like Kenny Pickett's randomly grew and help his draft status.
That is so crazy. I know
the random hand growth, huh?
It's so weird. I mean, some of the things sometimes I just feel like it's, do you like the kid or not?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, period. The end. I mean, remember Melvin Ingram? Like, he was our defensive end coming into whatever year that was, West, the 10 season maybe, or the 11 season. And people were looking at him like, this guy's 6'1", 250 pounds. What's he doing at defensive end in the SEC? Well, I mean, kind of worked out.
I mean, he's still playing to this day.
I mean, there's just some guys, you either like them or you don't like them. Don't like them because they're a 10th better here and there. Yeah. All right, brother. Really appreciate it. Y'all got so much stuff up right now. I've got to get caught up. I haven't really looked at anything for the last couple of days with anything. So that will be my kids to bed.
Go do your homework.
Tonight. Yeah, I'm doing my homework. We really appreciate it. Glad to have you back. Have a wonderful week.
All right, thanks, guys. Have a good night.
There you go, Wes Mitchell with Gamecock Central. All right, we've got to hit a timeout. Not done in Columbia, though. When we return, we'll head right back up I-26 and bring in Scott Wingo. Tough weekend for Carolina baseball, but Scott is always such a pleasure to have on, and we can't wait to talk to him again. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Right here in our backyard is Motley Rice LLC, a law firm that hasn't lost its Carolina roots. The Motley Rice team fights every day for South Carolinians who were injured while traveling by plane or bus, harmed by medical drugs and devices, or burdened by dangerous auto recalls, including Takata airbags. Motley Rice is headquartered in Mount Pleasant at 28 Bridgeside Boulevard. We are honored to have Motley Rice as a sponsor for the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risk their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
People don't like to get stuck in traffic, stuck in the mud, stuck at work, and to others you probably don't think much about, stuck with a big medical bill or stuck with a healthcare program that doesn't fit who you are. Experience true medical freedom with Share Healthcare. More affordable, more options, user-friendly, and biblically sound. You can join right now. Explore a new way to show you care with Share Healthcare. Join us today at sharehealthcare.com. sharehealthcare.com.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Lowcountry. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Family vacations, a new car, a new boat, all cost money, but you don't necessarily have to make more to afford any of that if you can save cash that's flying out the window now. iHelp Consulting can help you finally get the kids to Disney World, upgrade the minivan, or drop that new boat in the water next summer. Let Daniel and iHelp Consulting consult with you. No fees, just savings. You pay them a percentage of those savings. Save on essential services, credit card fees, you name it. Let them find it. These folks are incredible. iHelpConsulting.com. How can I help you?
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Flamagore, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the national anthem.
JB Goldwater Show. Live, loud, and online.
All right, final hour, Monday afternoon here on the JB and Goldwater Show. Today brought to you in part by Palmetto Group Insurance. PalmettoGroupInsurance.com. Make sure you have insurance and good insurance. Jamie Richardson, the owner of Palmetto Group Insurance, is the man. So find him there at PalmettoGroupInsurance.com. Thanks to Wes, and now on to Scott. Scott Wingo, assistant baseball coach for the Gamecocks, generally always joining us on Mondays, and we're happy to have him this week. Tough weekend on the Plains, certainly, but it's never tough to talk to Scotty, and we're glad he's back. Hey, bud.
What's going on, Jamie? Missed you guys the last few weeks.
I know. First of all, our condolences to you and your family on the loss of your grandfather. I'm so sorry to hear that.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, he had a long, great life, and definitely was a day of celebration because he was 94 years old and kind of got the Wingo name started. So he was he had a great life, and it was just good to celebrate it.
So that's Mr. Billy, for any of those wondering. That's his dad's dad. How often did he get to see you play at Carolina?
He came a number of times.
Okay, I thought I met him.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. And I know, my dad's, my mom's dad, he came to almost every game when I was at the Sarge in 2008.
Yeah.
And he passed away in 2009. But, so I had just lost, my dad's father. But, my mom, he showed up to, I think, every single home game at the Sarge in 2008. So that's probably where you met him too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have, man. I mean, gosh, it's so hard to remember some of that. I do remember this, and I'm pretty sure, Scotty, that this was, I think it was at East Carolina, and I just happened to think about it not too long ago. Did you hit a home run at East Carolina in the regional? Was that where it was?
Yep.
In 2009? Wasn't it 2009?
That was 2009.
Okay. All right. So I remember you hit a ball out of the jungle is what they called it up there. I was, so Jay Rat and I were there down the first base line, and we were sitting next to, not like right behind Jennifer Holbrook, because that was Coach Holbrook's, I think, first year, if I remember correctly now. Wait, no, that wasn't Holbrook's first year, was it? Yeah, it was. What?
Yeah, 2009 was.
Yeah, 2009 was.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so we were sitting there with Miss Jennifer right behind her, talking to her, and that ball you hit left the yard, and I had never seen your dad more excited. He was. I thought he was going to land on the moon. I mean, I couldn't.
Hey,
I just
ran after the ball.
He ran
toward
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said he usually sprints and just goes gets the ball. One time he paid a kid $20 at the Citadel to get the ball or something.
Well, no, he did. I remember he was going nuts, and then he ran down the I don't know if they're still this way. I haven't been up there in a while, but you could go down the right side of the stands, down past the bullpen, and he went down there, and then he had the ball. So I don't know how he got it. I don't know if somebody gave it to him or he went and found. I don't know what happened, but he got it. So you might want to find it. It's somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure he's got it. Oh yeah, no doubt. They've got a handful of balls in their house, and they're all my home run balls. So I'm sure that's in there. I'm sure that's.
Oh yeah, man. Dude, that was so cool. I don't know. I just thought about that not too long ago, and I've been meaning to mention that to you. I forgot, but
hey,
yeah.
You talk about a tough loss on that game, man.
That series was tough. That was because y'all lost, and then the second series in 2010, I think, was up there again, and y'all lost that series.
Oh yeah.
That's okay.
That was a good little post-game locker room shootout.
Yeah.
He got all of it. Literally every player.
Yeah, well, it worked. I know the next weekend y'all got you lost the series to Clemson, but if anybody remembers what actually happened that year, you ended up beating them in Omaha, and then you won the World Series. So it kind of all worked out, didn't it?
Yes, sir, it did.
It did. All right. Well, we love to go down memory lane with you. One day we'll just have to do this forever. Just do it for an hour and talk about all the good times. Not a lot of good times this weekend, unfortunately, Scotty, over on the Plains, which, by the way, hats off to Auburn. I think they've done a nice job with first of all, their program. They're pretty good, but the ballpark looked good. And so for what it's worth, but you lost all 3 games, which is tough. With the issues that y'all have had from a pitching standpoint this year, really trying to piece it together. And then I actually thought, Scott, on Friday, going into the weekend with kind of the way that Mark had adjusted the rotation, even on a full week's rest, letting Will go on Sunday, that worked out. And then having Becker at the back end of the bullpen, and he just didn't really have it on Saturday. But I thought the way that things were kind of unfolding, I thought, shoot, they might be in position to go there and take a couple this weekend. But it just didn't work out that way with some of the issues you've had on the mound this year. You got to score a bunch of runs and only 9 runs all weekend offensively, Scotty, and that's just not going to get it done on the road in the SEC.
Yeah. I mean, I think offensively is the story on this weekend, because I thought we pitched well enough to give us a chance on Friday, and definitely Saturday. I know we gave it up there in the 7th Saturday, but I thought pitching was overall not bad this weekend. I mean, I thought Gil Reese came in Friday, gave us about 5 or so, gave us a shot to win. I mean, and obviously Saturday was tough. Losing a game like that when you're up 3 runs there in the 7th, that stung a little bit. And obviously we knew Will was going to give us a shot on Sunday. And we just didn't do enough. Hit some balls hard, but same time didn't do a good enough job to score runs. I know they made a nice play in right center off Seitler. That was a big time catch, but you still got to keep scrapping, and season's not over. But you got to fight, and we'll keep showing up, fight. So we ain't done. That's all I say.
You got the other half of the Yellowhammer Iron Bowl rivalry coming to town this weekend with Alabama. First pitch Thursday night, Founders Park. That one, by the way, folks, is on the SEC Network, and it is again on Saturday at noon. And y'all played well at home this year. Got some nice series wins there, so hopefully things will kind of kick it into gear. I do want to ask you about Josiah. Speaking of kicking it into gear, I mean, outside of the Winthrop game last week in the midweek, he has really swung it well, and I know that he's banged up. He looks awful out there just trying to trot around the bases. but the swing looks good. You know, Scott, he looks comfortable. I don't know that he's looked this comfortable since he's been in a Carolina uniform. What's changed with him?
Absolutely. He you know, he's been working a lot with Coach Kaye, just trying to not just shorten his swing, but just Kaye's got him just really working on thinking, you know, 50%, less movement, doing less. And, you know, he's got a 6'5" frame, just use his hands and use his lower half, you know, not trying to do too much. I mean, that big old frame, man, if he just squares it up, it's going to jump. And man, he's done a nice job these last few weeks. But you're right, man. It's tough. It's tough for him to even try to jog. So he's got to hit that. He's got to hit that thing to the wall, or you know, he's just trying to do. You know, he's just trying to fight for us. But he's definitely been swinging it well, and that's good to see.
It is. It's fantastic to see. Just in a general baseball sense, Scotty. At least one of my favorite things to do is when we talk baseball is to try to educate people a little bit on how some things work in the sport. I've been out of the game a long time now, so I'm not the dude to ask. But, you know, some of the things that you just mentioned, that 50% kind of keeping your body quiet, throwing hands at it, using the natural power that you have, like kind of explain that a little bit for people just in the sense of hitting, like how you hit the baseball. I don't know that there's enough young kids that actually understand. Sometimes you just make it a lot harder than it really needs to be.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I think sometimes when his hitters are up there and, you know, you get into a game environment, you know, everything tends to speed up a little bit. And I think it started for Seitler and VP, and he's just been working on that swing, on that nice, easy, you know, he says 50%. It's obviously not 50% because when you get in that game, we're getting it going. But
right.
In VP, he's done a nice job of very smooth, spraying the ball around. He'll get loose on a few, but he's just doing a good job of staying in that rhythm, staying, you know, within himself. And man, it's definitely translated to the games these last few weeks because he's been huge for us. I mean, that ball yesterday, I thought I was gone. And you know, there's very few times where I'm yelling on the, you know, yelling at our guys to run. I was telling Belk, come on, Belk, come on. Like, I thought the ball was gone. You know, there's only one out, and he almost got picked off at first. That was because of me. I was yelling at him to run. I don't know if you remember that, but Belk, he actually the right fielder threw to first base because I was yelling to Belk to run, but that was probably on me there.
Yeah. Well, at least you own it. I saw it.
Well,
yeah. I thought the ball was gone too, and then the kid made a nice play. It looked like if he hadn't got his glove on it, it was going to get over the wall. I guess I can't say that for sure, but what was it? Windy? Like what happened there? It seemed like it came off the bat, but then it looked like it just kind of hung up there and died.
Yeah, I saw Seitler kind of, you know, sometimes he'll drop his bat pretty low right after he swings it, and I saw him do that. That one, you know, told me it's probably gone, and then just off the bat, I thought, yeah, that's probably out of here. And it just kind of just laid up a little bit for us, and Belk kind of checked down at second base, and so I started yelling, "Let's go!" And then he gets around second, listening to me, and then he's got to touch the bag and go back. It was just like, oh man, that's deflating.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it. Scott Wingo at 120. So, Scotty, what are you dealing with in there right now? You know, I you know me, man. I'm always going to be fair to every conversation, but got a lot of young guys in that locker room, a lot of them. And y'all played so many freshmen. It's just ridiculous. I can't remember a year where this many freshmen played in the Carolina uniform. And you know, now you sit here at 19 and 20, you're 6-12 in the league. That is no doubt about it. Not the expectation at all at South Carolina, but that's where you are. And so not only are you trying to get the season turned around, but you got a bunch of young guys that you're trying to make sure that they don't, you know, this doesn't become natural to them. I mean, you're having to deal with their ups and downs and their personalities and those type things every day. if you've got an older bunch of dudes out there, Scott, sometimes it's easier to manage it. But when you have a bunch of young guys, there's a lot of other things you're having to do too. So kind of walk us through that dynamic and what the locker room's like.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have, third base, shortstop, center field, left field. I mean, all freshmen, Stone, Horning. So those guys right now in the SEC play are getting cut right now. You know what I mean? They're getting beat up a little bit. This season's kind of, it's long for them right now. But I'm a firm believer in, there's a lot of those guys that I can show up and fight with every day. Lee Croy, he comes to work every day. Stone, same way. But yeah, it's just right now we're getting beat up right now from that standpoint. I know Seitler, he's beat up. Eister's, he's been fighting that little hamstring, but you're just kind of getting punched right now. So either my philosophy is hopefully these guys are continuing to learn from it. I mean, I know Kate Austin did a nice job this weekend. Becker came in and got thumped a little bit Saturday, but those guys are young, and obviously that should help them grow in the next spot. And I know you look up and it's you're 6-12, whatever you are in the SEC. That's a tough look, but if you can keep that mindset of, hey, look, man, we're showing up to fight somebody. You're showing up to kick somebody's ass every day. You can turn this thing around. So that's going to be my mindset. And obviously, if it's not some of their mindsets, we'll see who that is pretty soon. Because when you're 6-12, you either fight back or you don't. So we'll keep fighting for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it, Scotty. You've been through the battles before, and if you go 500 in the SEC, you've had a damn good year in this league. I mean, it is just it's a nightmare to get through. But if you can get to 500, if you're better than 500, you're gravy. You're on the gravy train. But if you're at 500, man, you're in. There's never been a team ever. I don't know if you knew this, Scotty. There's never been a team in the history of the league that went just 16-14, 2 games above 500, and not made the NCAA tournament. And I think 90% of them, they go 15-15 and made the NCAA tournament, and like 70% of 14-16 or something like that. So, it's achievable. You got to get hot down the stretch, as you mentioned, but I think that is a really neat way to put it. You're going to find out real soon who's in that foxhole and who isn't, because if they're not in it, the record will dictate it. If they are, it'll improve. I think it's as simple as that, right?
I do. Definitely do.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Look at that.
There's so much to do. There's so much to do when you keep getting beat up. Either you lay down and you just keep letting them beat you up, or you fight back. And that's where we're at.
What when you talk to the guys, what do they say? What are the kids that are out there going through it every day, just in general? What questions they have for you? What are their attitudes like when in every game, good, bad, indifferent? I mean, what do you see out of this team collectively?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I thought this weekend, going into this weekend, the practice on Thursday at Auburn was good. Friday, we know Fridays, sometimes it's tough for us on Fridays, but I thought Gil Reese came in, gave us 5. Brett Thomas was shaky early, but he kind of settled for a second. But Friday, I thought we had a shot, didn't win it. But then going into Saturday, how we fought back and went down 3-1, made it 3-2, made it 3-3, made it 6-3. I mean, that felt like it was ours. That game obviously was a huge game. Like that was really tough to go up 6-3. Feel like that's our game. Think that could kind of turn things around. Thought we were, and then go and do that. That was really tough. But can't let that be it. And Sunday I thought we showed up, had Will on the mound, just couldn't scratch anything offensively. Had about 7 or 8 hits, had a couple big ones. Seitler's ball had 1 or 2 more that hit pretty hard, but we just didn't do enough. So it was just a tough weekend.
Scotty, how about Michael Braswell? We all saw, what he did when he popped early in the year. Talented kid, confident kid. It looks, at least in general. But I think even about a month or a little over a month ago, we even had conversations here about the fact that, I mean, you were a freshman in this league, Scott. You know exactly what he was going to hit at some point. Hitting 417, 420 when you're a freshman, it is just not sustainable in the SEC. It's not going to happen. So he's trying to get over the hurdles, over the mountains, so to speak, and kind of get himself resituated down the stretch here. What type of conversations have y'all had, and kind of give us some insight as to what he's kind of trying to grow through right now as a freshman who not only is good, but he showed it early, and everybody started to put those expectations on him, and now he's having to deal with that too.
Yeah. As a freshman, there's no doubt that not just physically the season, it wears on you a little bit as a freshman, but you got guys that, when you get to SEC play, they've got a scouting report, and they have video. They're going to see exploits and weaknesses, and bottom line, they're attacking him right now. And he's a freshman. He's gonna get better. He's gonna get stronger. Physically, I think what he's going to work on really, this summer a lot is to get really physical, get stronger. That's, I think, is going to help his game so much. But yeah, he's going to fight. I mean, he right now he didn't have a good weekend this weekend, but especially Sunday. But he's just got to keep getting stronger. I tell him that a lot. He makes some nice plays for us. Does a good, pretty good job at short. Want to work on his range a little bit, his explosiveness, but he's always obviously a player who came in and did awesome to start. But that SEC season, it's long. So,
there's no question, man. I mean, as a shortstop, Scott, he's got all the ability in the world. I mean, I'll let you speak to the range and things like that and trying to get him a little bit more stretched out. But overall, I think he's fielding it at a 960, 970 clip or something like that. Like, that's unheard of for freshman shortstops. I mean, he's lights out there. I think Drew, his freshman year at Carolina, made something like 21 errors. This kid's only got a handful of them this year. He's pretty good out there. So that's obviously something you can build off of.
Oh yeah. There's no doubt about it. Braswell's sure-handed as it gets. Those balls, and that's you just that kind of goes, overlooked. Those balls right at you, those routine balls, you just got to make those. We got to make those, and he does a great job of that. As an infielder, being picky, and I'm sure he's the same way. You want to be able to get some ball. I mean, we got to be able to move too. Some of those balls, you just to your left, just to your right. We gotta. He wants to be elite. I want him to be elite. I love working with him. He showed up every day in the fall, wanting to work hard with me, and so I love that about him. But we're gonna keep getting him better. Left to right. All that. So.
Before I let you get out of here, Will Sanders, you already mentioned. I mean, he was outstanding yesterday. I mean, he was just outstanding, and he's, for the most part, been pretty outstanding this year. We all expected him to be the guy, and largely he has been. Five innings on the bump yesterday, 7 hits, a couple of runs, 3 walks, and 3 strikeouts. Wasn't his best performance, but he was certainly battling on the road, and he did everything he could possibly do to give y'all a chance to win the game. And then hats off to Kate Austin after that as well. But Will Sanders, just as a player and as a prospect, I mean, he showed it with South Carolina. He's been on Team USA. You've been around elite arms your whole life. What do you see? How do you describe Will Sanders when you see him out there on the mound as far as what type of a prospect he is?
Oh, Will Sanders, man, it's great because he's obviously a great talent, a guy who can, just beat some bats up. He's 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". I mean, he's just a donkey. But what I like about him is he's got some competitiveness in him and fight. So when he's not feeling his best that day, he can just kind of, put it in another gear a little bit. You know, he can kind of just slow himself down and say, all right, let's make a pitch here. And that's what I like about him the most is you can just, and then you can see him on the mound, you know, telling himself what he needs to do. So it's you know, I enjoy talking to him. And, you know, I check rooms on the road. It's pretty funny. And he's usually the last room I check. We usually talk for about 5 to 10 minutes about, you know, the game or, you know, what he's going to do tomorrow. And he's a funny guy, man. And he's a winner for sure.
He, the way you describe him, he reminds me of Cisco, except for he's a lot taller than Mike.
Yeah, he's a little taller than Mike. Mike's a bulldog too now.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Definitely. Sanders and Cisco are definitely different. Cisco's straight up like, man, that's a bulldog right there. Like,
yeah.
Like, Will's different, but Will's friggin' the man.
Just from a mentality standpoint, I remember the 06 series at Georgia when they caught Mike on TV punching himself in the face. That was nice. So
yeah. Yeah, Mike was in a second, buddy. Will Atwood too. Now he might not show it, but Will Atwood would be fired up on that mound when Tanner would try to take him out. Sometimes Will wouldn't be happy, buddy.
No, I know. Yeah, those were interesting conversations. That group was there was a bunch of different birds in that group, man. But that was a bunch of good, solid people, as you well know. You were included.
Heck yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, awesome people.
How's the right arm feeling, man? You got the windmill down when you're waving them around third. You feeling good about your role over there?
I'm getting more comfortable. Definitely.
Yeah. Do you like? Do you reach out to anybody? Like, do you call Holbrook or Monty or any of these guys and just get tips on coaching third base? Or are you a big third base coaching tipster?
You know, I'm open for tips now, you know, but I asked Coach Slate. It's funny. Coach Slate, beginning of the year, he told me, hey, when the sun's setting, you got to send them. So he just gave me that piece of advice when we're at home, when the sun's about to set, you know, usually whatever, you know, not sure what time you're playing, say at, you know, whatever, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock game, 6, whatever. He said, you know, the sun's setting, you got to send them. It's tough for those right fielders to, you know, see.
Wow. That's good advice.
That is interesting.
Advice, right?
I never thought about that. How far are you getting down the line how far are you willing to go before you put the brakes on for some cat round in third full steam ahead?
Oh, I'm almost, I don't know if you saw in Auburn on Braswell's play, but I was, I'm 10 feet from the, I want to say from the hitter's circle, from the edge of I'm all in there, man. You know why? Because I thought he was going to be hosed, but I had to roll the dice, Jamie.
Hey, I love it. Aggressive, man. That's, you know, you got to be aggressive.
I'm yelling at our guys all the time in a good way, but letting them know, hey, you got to work on your secondary at second base, because trying to get them to understand that, hey, man, it is literally inches, feet. Like, it's going to be tight at this plate if this ball's hit hard. So we got to work on those secondaries and those primary leads.
There's a lot of kids that aren't doing that anymore. It's lazy. It's so lazy. It drives me up the wall, Scott, and I don't know why they think that it doesn't matter. Tell you what else drives me up the wall is these oven mitts these kids are putting on. Are you cool with that?
I mean, a lot of, honestly, I think a lot of them more than, trying to protect their hand. They think it looks cool. I'm sure. That's the new thing. All these big leaguers doing it. They're doing it. So, I mean, I'm fine with the elbow guard because I wore one, because I'm getting hit 67 times. But these oven mitts, I don't know.
Dude, whatever happened to the old days? Just put the batting gloves in your hands and run with them if you're that nervous about it.
I agree. Yep. I agree.
I don't know. Hey, man, we've kept you forever, but I just enjoy talking to you, so that's why we did it. It's no midweek games this week with the Thursday first pitch against the Tide. That's a 7 o'clock on Thursday, a 7 o'clock Friday, and a nooner on Saturday. Thursday and Saturday are booking ending the weekend with national TV. So Go get the Tide. Sweep the Tide. How about that?
Hey, that's the plan. Let's go do it.
Scott, thank you again. Best to you and your family on the loss of your grandfather. I know that was tough for all of you, but y'all are Wingos, and you'll keep pushing on as you always do.
I appreciate it, man. That means a lot.
You got it. Thank you, man.
All right, thank you, guys.
There you go. Scott Wingo, the pretty funny third base coach for the Gamecocks and former all-star second baseman as well. You talk about a kid who went through the meat grinder and then turned out to be the dude. That'd be him. He hit like 180 his freshman year.
It's a good example to a lot of younger kids. I mean, dads, if you're watching, listening, play it back for your kid who's playing. Even if things aren't going great, you can still have the right attitude and not just say the right things. We're going to show up and fight every day. What else are you going to do? But you can hear the attitude, right? I mean, it's easy to slump your shoulders and hang your head on the field and off of it when things aren't going the right way. That's also not going to get you anywhere. Listening to him is a pretty good example of leadership of, it's not going well, but we're going to show up and we're going to do it the right way. And we're going to conduct ourselves the right way. And there'll be actions, not just words on this show.
I know when he was a player, you never knew after a ball game, if you didn't know what the score was, you never knew if they won or lost, but just based on talking to Scott, you had no idea.
Yep.
Now you knew after they won the national championship in 2010 that they had won.
Little different.
Little different. But outside of that, after any game that was over, you never knew whether they won or lost based on how he was acting.
Yep.
And before a game, you never knew if they were playing the school of the deaf, dumb, and blind, or if they were playing LSU.
Right.
It was just he just showed up and did it every day. That's just Scotty. So glad he's here, and I'm certainly glad we had him today. It was a tough weekend this weekend. He didn't shy away from that. That's Coach Tanner used to always say, win your midweeks and don't get swept on the road, and you'll be fine. Well, those two things this year have not been good for South Carolina. Unfortunately, they've been swept on the road a couple of times, and they've lost some midweeks. And the record at 19-20, had that not happened, you'd be sitting here probably 20, 25 and 14 or something along those lines, and you'd be feeling pretty good about where you are. But midweeks and the road has been tough. So hopefully they can get it turned around, and we'll see what happens. A lot of teams sitting at 6-12 right now in the SEC, including the Florida Gators, who are not having a good year per their standards either.
Did you see how that game 3 ended? Gators in Tennessee.
Oh yeah, the catch.
Oh, the catch.
Yeah.
Leaning. I mean, it was a home run. He took the home run back. Tennessee's left fielder to could have been the center fielder to win the game.
Left fielder. Yeah. Left fielder. And it happened right about the same time, or within a few minutes of the ball that Seitler hit.
Oh, did it? I didn't realize.
Did you see it? Did you see the ball?
I saw a replay of it. I was not watching live, so I didn't realize it was kind of at the same time.
Dude, that ball off the bat, I thought it was going to hit Jordan Hare. I mean, it looked like it was hammered.
I listened a lot, actually, because it was Saturday. Well, the weekend's it's been nonstop since we went to LA and then came back. We've had family, and the weekend was the birthday party for my daughter also. So it was a little wild. So I was in the car a lot. So Sunday, I also listened a lot to Derek and Tommy, and the way they were just describing how well they were hitting the ball just wasn't going their way. I mean, it was just kind of one of their days, but they were describing that one in detail deep into the game.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense, but that happens, and that happened. So, all right, 1:38. It is our final timeout of a Monday afternoon, but don't go anywhere. Plenty still on deck, including some draft nuggets when we return on the JB and Goldwater Show. Hopefully, you won't ever need legal help for a catastrophic injury or health issues from a medical drug or device. But if you or a loved one suffers injury or loss, Motley Rice LLC is a nationally recognized law firm that is right here in Mount Pleasant at 28 Ridgeside Boulevard. Thank you, Motley Rice, for sponsoring the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show. Visit motleyrice.com for more. motleyrice.com.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road. You know what happens when you sell record numbers of new vehicles? That's right, we take in record numbers of local trades. Despite what the news is saying, quality pre-owned vehicles really aren't that hard to find. You just need to know where to look. Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate and on the web at stokesvw.com. We've got over 1,200 pre-owned cars, trucks, SUVs, and all at a fraction of the price when new. Every vehicle has been inspected and reconditioned, many with the balance of factory warranty. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, you don't need perfect credit to get approved for a quality pre-owned vehicle. And we'll take any trade in any condition, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Don't forget, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy a car from us. You're going to love our pre-owned selection, I guarantee it. So come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Negative trade equity financed a new loan, subject to lender approval.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
Family vacations, a new car, a new boat, all cost money, but you don't necessarily have to make more to afford any of that if you can save cash that's flying out the window now. iHelp Consulting can help you finally get the kids to Disney World, upgrade the minivan, or drop that new boat in the water next summer. Let Daniel and iHelp Consulting consult with you. No fees, just savings. You pay them a percentage of those savings. Save on essential services, credit card fees, you name it. Let them find it. These folks are incredible. iHelpConsulting.com. How can I help you?
It's the best time of the year on the sports calendar, and there's no better place to soak it all in than your spring headquarters. Dog and Duck, with 3 area locations in Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road. Until May, $5 pints of Wicked Weed Brews and Devil's Backbone, again, until May. Patio seating, happy hour daily. Family bingo on Monday, the Duck Truck Double Burger every Wednesday, Rib Night on Friday. It's the place to be for the best wings in town, the best sports everywhere you look. Dog and Duck, 3 area locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road.
You are listening to the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online.
It's just hard for me to believe that there might only be one quarterback taken in the NFL draft in the first round this week. That makes sense. Like, what in the world? When's the last time that even happened? Is there a stat out on that?
Oh, there has to be a stat out on that. I'm not sure of the actual number. I'm going to lean to, because of how wild that sounds, my guess is Willis and Pickett both go.
Yeah,
somehow, some way. But yeah, I mean, it's absolutely possible that happens, and it's reflective of the quarterback draft class. And that's why it's so weird, because it feels like, at least for most years, there are 2-3 quarterbacks who teams can look at and say, maybe this can be the franchise guy. Because if you're going to go first round, even second round, if you want to stretch it to there, if you're taking a guy there, you want that to be a franchise type of guy, not just someone who can facilitate and do the job. And we just flat out don't have that. Maybe it's Willis, maybe it's Pickett, but nobody is across the board unanimous and confident of that.
No, but I do agree with you. I think both will go.
Mm-hmm.
I think they will. I mean, who am I?
Yeah, I think.
But I mean, it's that's the whole point, though, right? Is there might be 2 that get in there, which would mean that they would both be late first rounders. I mean, it's looking like Willis is starting to become a little bit more of a popular pick to Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
So at least what I've seen, there's a little bit more of a consensus there. But then there's the note of, well, if he's still there when Pittsburgh drafts, but seemingly nobody, I guess, unless somebody fell in love with him and traded up to get him, it doesn't look like anybody in front of Pittsburgh currently right now is in the market for a quarterback. Behind him, if that's their guy. What's I think what's crazy is that so next year's draft class, as it stands today, not only is it going to be tenfold better than this one, but it has a chance to be one of the better ones we've seen in a long time, right? With CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. I think that there are many who are incredibly intrigued once again by Spencer Rattler. You got the Slovis kid, you got the kid at Florida. I mean, there's a bunch of guys who are prospects for next year. And so it just looks like many who are like, well, they're kind of trying to get their organizations, Darren, situated to where they're going to buy themselves a year before they go out and get that big splash QB.
It's interesting because that then lends the conversation a little even past the draft. And do we see more of jumps to mind just because of how often we heard it, the tank for Tua, but just tanking in general? Do we see more of that earlier this year when teams say, well, hang on a second. This past year, we saw it maybe like Jags were just flat out bad. So were the Jets. So were the Lions. So I don't know exactly how much tanking we saw. But this upcoming year, when there will be talent significantly greater than what we have this year, are we going to start seeing that earlier or hearing rumblings of that earlier in order to just start positioning themselves for that draft? Because it's a valid point. Even if you go out and take Willis or Pickett apparently, according to those in the know, more of the developmental project. Willis could be the one who can go play a little earlier, but how much do you really know even if you do take one of those guys? It's just not a draft that jumps out at me as a sexy draft.
No. And that's what makes it sexy 9 times out of 10 is the QB class. They're all you'll have personally speaking, if you ask me, like that's a good word. I like that word as far as grading what type of draft you may see and the excitement that would surround it. Quarterback is always going to be number one, but then after that, I'm wide receiver and defensive end, I think, are two positions that always bring flair to me if you have those big time guys. And I'm not just talking about Jadeveon Clowney now. I mean, we all know he was a once in a generational guy, but I always get really excited when I see big name, great defensive ends that we watch play college football. I like seeing where they go. And wide receivers. Wide receivers that's a sexy position as well. Running backs aren't like they used to be. Right. This isn't the days of George Rogers and Herschel Walker. Running backs are a dime a dozen. You're getting them in the late rounds, and most of them are they've got 3-4 years on their shelf, and that's about it. Some of them have longer, or they're splitting carries or whatever it is. But like, there's nothing sexy about interior linemen or offensive linemen. Some in the secondary. Nobody ever gets overly excited about linebackers. So I would say if you got a good classic QB, you got a good class of wide receiver, and you got good ends, people are going to be excited about your draft. And this year it's ho-hum on all of them.
Yeah, right. I mean, you got a couple of defensive ends, and
I mean, I like the kid from Oregon, the Thibodeau kid. I like that kid.
Yeah.
I like Hayden Hutchinson, clearly. But
right, and he's going to go high. Walker from Georgia is going to go high.
Maybe one.
Right. That's the odds flipped. I think they flipped last night or this morning that he is now the Vegas favorite. It's minus, I think, 140, 150 that he's going to be the number one pick. So that's the buzz that Walker will eventually go number one. But, yeah, you don't have Olave, maybe. I mean, that to me is one of the sexier names, wide receiver, that's out there because of really the speed. I mean, you're hearing some buzz of the Ohio State wide receivers, but there's just the big name guys who garnered the headlines in college football are still in college football. so that's one of the reasons why. I mean, when you've got two guys in the mix, at least being discussed, Heisman Trophy on the defensive end, that tells you the lights aren't as bright for the older guys, draft eligible guys in college football. And that's what we had last year. And it's translated to the draft.
Yeah, absolutely. What's really strange is the quarterbacks, kind of circling back to them, Willis, Pickett. If you rewind yourself back to not even just the start of the 2021 college football season, but pretty much, I'd say halfway to 2/3, 3/4 of the way through the year, I think that guys, okay, I don't want to speak for everybody here, so let me just speak more to guys like me who are much more intrigued by college football. The two names at that point in time that I was like, I'll be interested to see where they go in the draft next year. Could they be first rounders, or who's going to take them in the first round? All those preliminary conversations you have way too soon. Or Matt Corral and Sam Howell. And neither one of them I haven't even heard them in a conversation anywhere. I mean, when Matt Corral was on top of his game at Ole Miss, you thought, man, this cat's got a chance to be some kind of special. Sam Howell, and this isn't just because I watched him. I mean, I actually thought he had a decent game against South Carolina. I mean, they got beat bad, but I've never been crazy about him. I'm not sure why, but I always, everybody else liked him. So I was always intrigued as to what was going to happen with him. But I mean, I don't even know. I don't think any of those guys are either one of those guys are in the first round. I mean, they're probably second rounders or maybe third rounders, but that's still wild. Like, they were maybe top 10 picks halfway through last college football season. This year, they're not even close.
Yeah, certainly entering last year, Sam Howell was, and then he fell off quick.
I mean, wasn't he mentioned as like maybe a number one pick?
Yes, and a Heisman potential, but that also was part of this. Maybe North Carolina's a surprise team. So collectively, they just took a dive straight into the turf, and that's who they were, because they were completely inconsistent. But you don't hear anything about Howell. Corral hasn't generated much professional buzz at all. He'll get picked, but it'll be later rounds. It's not Thursday or Friday when Corral goes, I don't think. But they're 6'1", 6'2". I think Corral's 6'2" and Howell's 6'1", even though to my eye, Howell seems like the bigger guy. But officially, Corral is listed an inch taller than him. But there's no buzz. I mean, really, all of the buzz is Pickett and Willis, and Willis getting a little bit more, ironically enough, from Liberty, right? I mean, it's next year's the one that's going to get the buzz back for the draft, which is why I think this year is a good year for being out in Vegas, because the NFL draft is always a big deal. It's the NFL. Everything the NFL does is a big deal.
Yeah.
To put this draft that may not rate well with others in Vegas on the Strip, it at least brings more to it that could be lost.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be a neat setting. It's going to be a neat setting. And then as soon as it's over, we'll be talking about all these quarterbacks that are going to be heavy in the 23 class. Like, how it goes. Oh, way too early first rounders for 23.
Monday.
I think absolutely. Monday it'll come up. And that's when talk is going to start kind of heating back up for Spencer Rattler, because I think I've done a decent amount of research on this just to see what the buzz is out there as to how that'll carry over for the Carolina football program. And he seemingly is the real wild card in next year's class. I mean, Bryce Young, we know about Bryce Young. We know about so many other guys, but everybody is like, okay, going into last season, Spencer Rattler was most preseason Heisman pick, everybody's preseason Heisman guy in the whole 9 yards.
On the list for sure. High.
Absolutely. I mean, he was up there, and when we all know what happened, and now he's transferred to Carolina. And I think everybody is like truly interested in seeing, like, because what happens with him this year. Is he able to get back into the first round? Is he able to get into the top 10? Is he the number 1 overall pick as a quarterback? Whatever it may be. I don't know, but that's where a lot of this is going to start going. Everybody is going to talk about the 23 quarterback class, and then they're going to go, it's going to be as deep as Spencer Rattler makes it, basically. If he shows up, that class looks unbelievable. If he doesn't, it's probably going to be it'll be good, but it just won't be as good as it definitely could have been if he's not up there.
I think the questions surrounding Rattler are all valid questions. What really did happen at Oklahoma? How mentally ready are you? I mean, that's a very fair question. You hear what everyone associated with South Carolina is saying, that clearly he is not the sideline cancer that he was made out to be. He is a stand-up type of guy. He's putting in the work and integrating himself into the locker room. You hear all of that. And then you also know what you've heard and what you've seen from the past. So what is the truth? It's up to Rattler to tell us what that truth is throughout the entire year. That's a huge part of this. because who he is and how he meshes with the team through the good and the bad is going to carry a whole lot of weight in, number one, how he performs, number two, how the team performs, and then number three, how the NFL is going to look at him. So all of those questions are valid questions, and if he answers them all, then he is the Spencer Rattler preseason, one of the Heisman favorites we were talking about last year. And he is the Spencer Rattler of one of the strongest arms in college football, and NFL teams could be looking at him saying, okay. So does he make or break the draft? No. Does he change? Does he affect the quarterback class? Most definitely. And that is, I agree. We'll start hearing here are the top guys, and then can Rattler make a push? Can Rattler, and then I'm not sure who else is going to be on that list. Can Rattler and these guys make a push? But he'll be on that list, and he'll headline that list. What can they do to get themselves into consideration as one of the top quarterbacks heading into the draft?
Yeah, I think that the first two that you're going to mention before you get to anybody else, Spencer Rattler or anybody, or CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. After that, okay. Now you're talking about Rattler. Now you're talking about Keaton Slovis, up there at Pitt, following in the footsteps, basically, of Kenny Pickett, potentially. The kid at Boston College. Shoot, man, there's a lot of guys talking about not just the kid at Florida, the Richardson kid, but there's a lot of dudes that like the Van Dyke, the young man, the Van Dyke the kid at Miami. And what can he do in his first year under Mario Cristobal? So, there's so much to be determined there. But to your point, I'm just providing some of those names that will be lumped in with Spencer Rattler as to how deep the class will be next year. A lot to like about it now. We haven't got to this year's draft, but it just comparatively to this quarterback class in next year's, it'll be a world of difference in how it's discussed publicly. There's no doubt.
And these guys have more flash. That's the other thing. I used the word sexy before. The guys you're talking about for the next draft, 23, have more flash. Willis played at Liberty. How much did you really see him? How much flash did you really see there? How much flash, other than a fake slide that changed the rules, did you really see out of Kenny Pickett? None. Like, that's not who these guys are, or at least what we saw when we had the opportunity to see them. These other guys are top-tier performers on top-tier teams that you're going to see a lot. So the whole dynamics are different.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to the draft, though, for all the reasons you mentioned earlier. I will pass this along. You mentioned top-tier performers, according to Lou Bajak of the state newspaper. G.G. Jackson's college recruitment, it's all but over. He will be announcing on Wednesday at 3:00 in a press conference where he will attend, or where he will go play college basketball. What does that mean for South Carolina? Based on most information that I have had for, I don't know, Darren, 5 or 6 months, probably, or more. Probably not good. I would say the chances of him becoming a Gamecock are slim to none at this point in time. Could that change? I guess. I don't know. But I don't think so. It looks like he is 100% ready to go, and he will announce at 3:00, which is about, I think, 30 minutes after when Ridgeview will announce their new head basketball coach as well. So it would be a significant news. Eric Stoneman is gone, and so there's that 2:00 hour on Wednesday is going to be full of stuff to get into. So we'll be paying attention to that. I would, if I had to make a prediction, it'd be a blue blood, either Duke or North Carolina. And I would say, see Adam there says UNC. I'm leaning with you. So we'll see.
Or like overtime elite. Maybe he goes that route. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree. UNC, I agree.
I think UNC is probably where it's headed. It looks like he's probably not going to reclassify. So does it mean it's over? No, but we'll see. All right, thanks to Wes and Scott and all of you. Hopefully you'll get outside and do something fun today because it is flat out beautiful. We'll get more into some Major League Baseball stuff tomorrow. Didn't get to a lot of it today. Let's just say the Braves are 7-10 and the Washington Nationals are 6-12. So neither Darren and I are climbing mountains and screaming for joy.
No,
that's for sure. See you tomorrow at noon.